so it's funny, we were all watching Nick Lane's presentation earlier. I don't know how many of you guys saw it, but he was talking about the Viking business model that's currently rampaging across the market and destroying SMS. And I thought, oh, well, my conversations with a very tall Norwegian in the messaging business. so Martin, are you trying to destroy the SMS business by raping and pillaging across it?
Quite the opposite, but it is an incredibly funny transition.
Yeah. I think you're on one of the good guys. I hope so anyway. So let's start with the basics. You've described your proposition as messaging ops, and can you explain in simple language what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So messaging ops is really any part of what a business needs to do, an ISV needs to do to connect and build into the providers in the space. So that includes anything from actually building, developing, and maintaining the APIs that it takes to build, but also on top of that, the actual number registration, the setup, the number provisioning, the troubleshooting whenever customers complain. All of that is hours, countless of hours of operational headaches. So that kind of encompasses all of it, but really covers multiple different fields and areas.
Okay. So obviously, you're a founder. You started this company up. It seems to be going very well. But I don't think you started in this business. So can you give us a bit of the origin story about what you were trying to do originally and how you happened across this problem and thought that was a better one to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started spending years building, actually as an ISV. We were operating a messaging marketing solution, me and my co-founder, and was operating that for years. And as we transitioned through, we were working with multiple different partners in the space and really feeling the pain intimately ourselves. We were every single time spending countless of hours just building and maintaining and upkeeping, and found ourselves spending more time actually maintaining the solutions we had built than building new solutions or building great solutions for our customers. And as then compliance tightened even further, which was much needed and previously discussed in some of the earlier talks too, how kind of the Viking business models are destroying the ecosystem of SMS, how all that kind of accumulated into finding that, well, nobody is tackling this space. We're seeing that had an immense result for other channels like email, and really saw that, well, if nobody else is addressing it, then we will. And that's why we started Volt.
Is this in the US?
Right now, it's focused on US messaging, but we have a lot of international clients, especially due to the fact that they have difficulty navigating all the new regulations and everything in North America.
But when you started this SMS marketing business, that was in the US, right?
That was in the US,
and
yes.
And the problem that you identified, presumably, was worldwide?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So really, all of the operational burden comes down to navigating and understanding the compliance rules, because sure, it changes at the very top, and it is due to the will to want to prevent spam and issues that is destroying the industry, but it goes far beyond just SMS, and of course in North America today that is still one of the bigger ones, but is rapidly also spreading to other channels.
So I've heard you in previous interviews draw a parallel between what you're trying to do and what happened in the email marketing space, and that will, I think, help us to understand the problem even better. So could you explain that?
Yeah, of course. I would say it's probably the perfect comparison, given the fact that if you look at how it was with email, even thinking back 10, 15 years from now, or yesterday, or in the past, then we saw that there was still a lot of issues navigating spam filters, navigating the actual infrastructure of it all. You would have email service specialists in every software company that was operating an email solution. Today, of course, that's considered absurd. No company is today hiring email service specialists to operate their own email servers. That is due to the fact that there were solutions like SendGrid, for one, that came to the market and made sure that they could help with the operational burden and help that become scalable. And what we saw from that was a massive impact to the industry as a whole. Suddenly companies was no longer spending the amounts of money and time that they were on just operationalizing email. They were now focusing on sending the right message at the right time and actually building business models around it, which 10x'd the industry as a whole and the message volume, or the email volume from businesses. So we're kind of seeing that same transition right now with SMS, and we're certainly trying to do our part to ensure that we can make that more healthy and ensure better compliance to the regulations, and also enable them to focus on actually building like value-driving solutions as opposed to just maintenance infrastructure.
So let's dive into how we got here. So you've sort of set out that the message delivery can be unreliable and lacking transparency, and you've sort of touched on some of the compliance issues that have contributed to this. Can you sort of describe how we got to this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course been a long, tedious journey, but I mean, it was very well summarized earlier this morning. It's been discussed and touched upon earlier in yesterday's sessions as well, but really when it comes down to it, it's been the fact that there's been a lot of bad actors.
Yeah.
And due to the bad actors, the operators and everybody in the ecosystem has to tighten the controls and tighten the rules to hopefully push them out. Now, that's also impacting good businesses and good traffic. And that makes it harder for an everyday, like small CRM software company to launch something that they have to have to stay competitive in the space. When everybody else is offering SMS and they are told that they have to as well, then it becomes sort of this like never-ending battle of, well, we have to do it, but we don't know how we can possibly do that at a scale of 2,000 companies even. So I think it's been, of course, a journey of trying to combat spam and issues in the space, leading to much needed compliance rules.
Yeah.
But yeah, those compliance rules are ever-changing, and of course, just as we continue to combat it, is also expanding to other channels as well.
So to bring that to life a little bit, let's talk about one particular example of compliance, which is 10DLC, which I'm sure the audience will be aware of. Can you sort of talk about how that specifically has impacted the space?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason we started when we did. We saw that the infrastructure issues was already occurring well before 10DLC was rolled out, but that made, of course, a massive requirement for businesses to get fully registered. And a lot of software companies was looking at their infrastructure and rebuilding it to ensure that they could comply with the latest rules. Again, much needed rules. If there wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to have any longevity in the space, but that did leave a lot of companies kind of flat-footed and not able to fully understand or grasp what their requirements were. Yeah, it definitely impacted the industry in the sense that there was a lot of trepidation, a lot of fear on, well, how will I avoid getting hit with fines? It's been a large part of where we see kind of the shark bite of parts of this problem and what Volt is focused on, which is helping people comply with those rules. If you think of 10DLC and the TCR and the rest of regulations in other countries as well as kind of the IRS in that sense, then you could think of us like TurboTax.
So this is made even more complicated by the fact that enterprises often have multiple CPaaS and messaging partners. So in addition to all of the compliance regulations that enterprises have to look out for, they're also dealing with multiple partners. Why do they have multiple partners, and what kind of problems does that cause?
Yeah, so of course, it's not due to the fact that every software company wants to have 4 different or 5 different partners. I think the more usual story is that they started building their feature 5 years ago, let's say, and they had one primary partner. And as it goes in the industry, they move providers just about on average every 1 to 1.5 years. So by the time that they kind of feel the pain of the tech debt that they have amassed, and they come to us, they have some traffic still on their original CPaaS, one on their second, and one on their third, and one on their fourth. And they have to maintain all because they have active customers sending active traffic on each. And that's how they find themselves having to navigate a bunch of different providers and a bunch of different technology, and especially with additional regulation and some of them having of course, their own connection to, for instance, TCR, since we gave that as an example, and others not having it. That then becomes kind of a web, if you may, of individual message sending engines that we've now kind of accumulated into one, help them have one connection, keep all of their own contracts, keep all of their own sending on their own contracts, and also be able to tie in their own CSP account in the sense of TCR to register and own that registration themselves.
So that brings us into your product. Let's talk about how you developed it, how companies onboard it, and what the user experience is like.
Yeah, so kind of like I just touched upon, the biggest piece is ensuring that they can send through their own contracts, that they can stay kind of with whatever provider that they have their contract with. We are absolutely not looking to disrupt any parts of that. So when a customer comes to us, oftentimes it's from the fact that they have a large chunk of new customers. They have a lot of onboarding, and we see that on average they have about 3.5 employees. So not that anybody is half-time employed, but 3.5 on average that they are then spending not building actual messaging strategy or whatever, but just keeping the lights on. And at that point, they realize, hey, this is unsustainable. We are, of course, planning to grow. We are planning to see this expand. And at its currently stand, we can't do that alone. So when they come to us, they usually want us to do a full review of their compliance. We check every single one of their campaigns and customers. We review all the websites. We have algorithms as well that checks and scrapes and makes sure that everything is compliant with what the carriers require. Once we've done the full kind of analysis and bring them on, we help them be able to register with a single click, even if they have 20 brands or 20,000, and be able to take that burden off their shoulders. Then we help them with compliance from the message sending side. So we analyze their traffic. We call it, or my co-founder calls it KYT, so know your traffic, and being able to really see what is going on from the very singular message campaign that they have running from their customers. So that way we can see outliers and they can find bad actors and remove them before they get in any sort of trouble that has previously disrupted businesses in the ISV space before, where they had maybe 1 or 2 bad actors hidden among 2,000, and that got them kicked off of their provider, which massively disrupted their entire service. So we're helping them avoid that.
What's the sort of timescales we're looking at to get up and running?
So far, we've seen people getting up and running in 3 days. So it's incredibly fast. Usually we can have a conversation with a software company and they're a customer before the month is over. Other times, of course, depending on their timelines, we're of course working with them. But yeah, from our end, it's relatively seamless and fast.
And the business model?
So our business model is ensuring that we're helping alleviate the software company's burden. So we're charging them kind of tied to the burden that we are alleviating based on how many brands we're managing for them. So think of it like a flat charge. We're not adding any additional costs to their cost of goods sold on their messaging and SMS. We're simply sticking to what is it that we are managing for them? What is it that we're taking off of their engineers and their support team? Charging them kind of the flat monthly for that.
How would you describe your relationship with messaging aggregators? You're kind of going over the top and complimenting them, but I don't know, is there any tension there? Or?
No, it's been extremely well received so far. Oftentimes we actually see that alleviating a lot of the CPaaS companies' burdens. Right now we get, I would argue probably a third to half of our customers sent from partners. They're finding that they have problem customers that aren't actually problems. They just need to hear from an independent third party that, hey, we're not saying it's you, but your customers are sending bit.ly links. Of course you're going to get bad traffic. You're going to get blocked by T-Mobile, and that's expected. So since we can see the traffic and flag it as, hey, you now got a 50% deliverability on this one customer, the reason is the customer sent a bit.ly link. They can now communicate to that customer proactively and tell them, hey, I'm so sorry, but you need to change the way that you're sending messages, as opposed to wait until that customer yells at them 3 weeks later saying, hey, our campaigns are having awful conversion rates. And the reason is, again, they just sent Bitly links. So we're alleviating a lot of the support requests and tickets for the CPaaS companies, for customers that come through Volt, and also helping them get better traffic.
So it all sounds amazing, and obviously it sounds like everyone benefits. So what challenges are you still facing? What kind of resistance when you go in to see people? I mean, it's just an open door that you walk through.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm not going to say it's all roses, of course. Everything changes so fast, and there's changing rules and requirements that we have to stay on top of. I think it's, of course, important that we have close relationships with all the CPaaS players as well as the carriers to ensure that we are compliant with what it is that is best for the industry. Since we're thankfully in a position now to be able to help guide and regulate the types of traffic that we notify them about. We of course want to ensure that we stay on top of that. But I would say the biggest resistance is probably to change the status quo. There's a lot of course, set in their ways CTOs, I think, that still believes that their messaging operations workload and burden is a competitive advantage, which I think, like we saw with email, is probably something that's just going to change with time. But yeah, that's probably the biggest kind of resistor to that type of change today.
So if there's any competition, it comes from sort of engineering departments.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of large companies has, of course, had to solve these problems. I mean, I'm not saying that there was no company or software company that had managed to scale up their SMS program before we existed. That's obviously today. We've seen with some of the biggest companies that we're talking to that they have 50 full-time engineers. They're spending millions a year on it. And us selling to that department is more or less them selling themselves out of jobs. So obviously that is never going to change. And that's completely okay for now. And I think ways that we can, of course, help them kind of piecemeal take away the burdens that they simply can't stay on top of is probably the way to go with them. But that definitely continues.
I'm sure those engineers can find other things to do, can't they?
I will say the biggest surprise that we had with our approach to the market as well has been that there's a lot of engineers that are breathing a sigh of relief.
Right.
Because there's very few engineers that went to become an engineer because they wanted to build SMS infrastructure. Now, our engineers and us, we love it. We love the challenge. But a lot of the engineers that we're talking to at the software companies, they joined this cool marketing CRM company, and they thought they would build newest, greatest solutions, and especially now in the era of AI, they want to build a lot of really cool experiences.
Right.
And in their words, not mine, they are stuck doing latrine duty.
Right.
And they want to avoid that and get away from it as soon as possible.
Yeah. What about competition? Do you, apart from stubborn engineers who love latrine duty, have you got any other companies that are doing something similar?
Cardinal sin to say you don't have competitors. So I will simply say we still have the set in their ways CTOs, but that's the today the only direct kind of competitor for it. But I think as we kind of show and share more about the category of messaging ops and messaging operations, I think, and I would almost hope that there will be more companies and more solutions out there to try and complement this, because similar to what we saw in the email space, it benefits everybody in the ecosystem. And really, when we're looking at this, it's more than just, hey, you should be using Volt. It's hey, you should be thinking of this category of messaging ops as a way to compete and be better and focus on your revenue-driving solutions as opposed to your infrastructure. And educating the market to get to the point where they realize that status quo shit is, of course, expensive and takes time. So would love to not do that alone.
Well, I hope today's part of that process. Where are you at the moment? You're based in the US. Are you operational outside of the US, and how many customers you have and so on?
Yeah, so right now we're working with hundreds of customers in the, specifically in the US messaging ecosystem. We're focused on where the compliance is right now the most relevant for SMS. That is obviously shifting rapidly, especially with RCS and WhatsApp, which is kind of larger now globally, which we've seen plenty of data around too, and we're seeing that shift happening in North America too. But right now we're working with international companies that are managing their customers' traffic in the US. Oftentimes they're struggling with it, but where we're focusing on our solutions is North America today.
Right.
But definitely seeing that expand rapidly, and we're anticipating that to have a pretty rapid shift in additional like core focuses once we introduce more around RCS and WhatsApp.
Yeah. Got any questions from the audience for Martin? Well, I've got more, if you haven't. You talked about RCS then. Can you talk about rich messaging and how this might impact your company journey?
Yeah, no, I think it's very welcome. I mean, really right now, the reason we focused on SMS as a core was because there was so many troubles in it, and our experience was in North America. But really, when you think about messaging ops as a category, it goes around the registration and compliance, and ultimately, most of our companies are already dealing with multiple different channels. So as RCS and WhatsApp becomes bigger in North America, it's going to be bigger with our customers. And they are already asking us for ways to help manage that for them. So we're seeing that as a very welcome shift. And especially in the way that we're thinking about our solutions, we want to make sure that we encompass as many channels as possible and not just SMS.
And the compliance and regulation, you talked about 10 DLC. What other kinds of regulation is coming down the pipe that you think might impact your business?
I mean, I think the bigger piece is probably around the registration requirements.
Yeah.
That seems to be almost the unspoken problem areas for most of our customers, where of course they are all talking about how they can integrate and implement, like let's say WhatsApp. However, the amounts of horror stories that we keep hearing about companies registering, but then waiting 6 weeks and then getting to the end of it and then suddenly getting kicked out because they didn't have their business kind of page matching the name. And there's all these pieces that just highlighting it, streamlining it, and similar to the analogy I gave earlier, operating sort of like the TurboTax for business messaging there is going to help a lot of the adoption of the channels, and also get rid of most, if not ideally all, of the headaches of registering and being able to communicate to their customers about true timelines. That's so yeah, definitely one of the areas that we would love to do more in.
And can we sort of quantify some of the benefits here? So obviously you said you've got many customers already. I don't know if you can name names, but it doesn't matter if you can't. But can you just give us an indication of how much easier you've made life for one of your customers?
Yeah. I think a good example, and again, since I didn't ask for permission ahead of time, I'm not going to share the name. But let's say a large CRM company that's focused on helping independent contractors be able to communicate with their clients. They had 17 full-time engineers that was building into maintaining their own messaging. And they found themselves getting into hot water with one of the providers due to the fact that they had one or two bad actors that then got them flagged as, hey, you need to move your entire traffic over because we can't trust these two. And we then helped them get registered. We then helped them with the transition and was able to ensure that they now have full visibility into their traffic. But more importantly, they managed to now move just about 15 of their 17 engineers over to focus on revenue driving solutions as opposed to the messaging operations side, which freed up millions in annual salary costs that they had simply keeping the lights on. So that's a pretty tangible, tangible piece for that specific customer. But yeah, we have multiple stories like that in various different scales. I mean, really, when you look at even smaller companies, they oftentimes benefit even more because they don't even have the infrastructure or tribal knowledge to understand, like, this is what you need to do to be successful. So navigating that and helping them navigate that is very fulfilling.
So you have three products, I believe: Vault Messaging, Vault Insights, Vault Connect. Can I ask about Insights? Because obviously you're solving a lot of these issues, but presumably with your analytics, you can actually help your customers to have a single view of truth, as it were, and then maybe build better solutions in the future. Is that the right way?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Really goes to the previous question on how do we help people manage multiple gateways? Not because they want to have multiple gateways necessarily, but because they want to have the ability to have redundancy, and some of them, they also just have some historical messages that still runs there. And right now, due to how, of course, the industry has been built and everything has been set up, there's a lot of mismatching error codes that doesn't really give a full picture. So if you're sending on one provider and they might have amazing documentation and amazing error codes, another provider that they have might not quite be there. And since they're not matching, they end up being fully blind as opposed to even looking at it as seeing half of it. So we help normalize some of those error codes, put it all in front of them so they can see the actual reasons for why. It's no longer displaying to them as error code 86,432. It is showing as, hey, this got blocked by T-Mobile due to the fact that you were sending a bit.ly link.
Right.
So that way they can take actionable steps. It's no longer in the hands of the engineer, it's in the hands of the customer-facing side that can communicate this. And we also help them be able to send a link directly to their customer so that the customer, without having to log in, can see their own messaging and their own traffic and their own analytics across the various different carriers.
Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to close by asking what are your plans for 2025?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest plans is ensuring that we can share a little bit more about the category of messaging ops and get more awareness around it. We already have some really good partners that we love working with, and of course are always looking to ensure that we can understand what each CPaaS in the entire ecosystem really prefers, what are some of the rules that they want to be stricter about, and how can we help regulate from our side, from the software company's side, to ensure that the traffic as a whole becomes better. So I guess grand plans there. We'll see how much we can achieve in 2025, but that's kind of the long term.
And if anyone wants to get hold of you, where do they go?
Yeah, I mean, I will be here for the rest of today and tomorrow, and also for the rest of the week. So I would always love to meet in person, but if you cannot reach me here, feel free to send me an email at martin.lien@textvolt.com, or of course, always text me 405-443-7368.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Martin. Absolutely fascinating. All the best.